Gaming on the Mac has gracefully improved in the last 2 years. With the introduction of newer Macs like the M3 Max chip and programs like Crossover, gaming on the Mac has taken a huge leap compared to what we know MacBooks for. Most people buy MacBooks for productivity work and not gaming, as it's something that's seen for Windows devices. But that's totally on Apple, as they kind of neglected this industry and focused more on selling their services. Now it's 2026, MacBooks can take on Windows devices in graphics and performance when it comes to gaming. I have created a list of Windows games you can play on the Mac. We shall be using Crossover to run these games. I'll leave a link in the description on how to set it up. Now that's out of the way, here are some of my favorite Windows games you can play on the Mac in 2026. Game number 1 is The Last of Us Part 2. This is one of the most stunning games I've seen on the Mac, with good visuals and great storytelling which stays with you while playing the game. The narrative explores themes of revenge, loss and cycles of violence without spoiling key events. Played in third-party person, it emphasizes survival horror with stealth, crafting and intense combat. The game is demanding in terms of resources, so I would recommend using a Max chip or Pro chip for better results. Here it's running at 30 FPS at 1080p low settings with METafX and DLSS set to balanced. If you want a higher FPS, then some upscaling will be required, hence using a Pro or Max chip. The next game is Clair Obscure Expedition 33. This is a turn-based RPG game with incredible combat, music and graphics, made in France and won multiple awards back in 2025. Set in a dark fantasy world, it follows Expedition 33's desperate quest to slay the Paintress, a godlike entity who annually points a decreasing number of a monolith, erasing everyone at and above the edge from existence, now down to 33. Performance on the Mac, I would say it's okay. This is an Unreal Engine game, which of course is so demanding on M series, hence you won't get better results if you're like playing on a PC. I was getting a steady 30 FPS at 1080p resolution with DLSS and METafX set to balanced. This game has extremely demanding open world areas which take a toll on your system, so I would recommend capping the FPS to 30 FPS for a much better experience, especially if you're playing on a base model chip like an M3 or M4. Even when playing on an M3 Max MacBook Pro, I was getting 40 FPS. Yes, it's a heavy game. But despite all that, it's a great game which I would recommend you trying out on a Mac. Up next is Silent Hill F. This is a survival horror game set in the foggy Japanese town, where high school student Hinako Shirokawa searches for her missing friends amid psychological terrors and monstrous threats. Expect tense exploration through real-world spots like schools and airy foggy shrines, following a semi-linear path with side areas for items. This is another demanding game which requires a Pro or Max chip. It requires indirect lumen lighting enabled in order to render the lighting in the game properly. This takes a massive toll on the FPS. I was getting around 30 FPS at low settings with DLSS and METafX set to quality to get better visuals. If you play it on older M series chip, the game won't look great since it's not native, so keep that in mind. This game looks like it was designed to be a Mac game because of how it looks and feels. It's a horror game, and most popular AAA titles on a Mac which are native are horror games. For example, Resident Evil games. If Apple or the game developers bring the native Mac port, it would be a great addition to the already famous collection of games. Sonic Racing Crosswords is our next game on this list. Despite there being fewer racing games on the Mac, and please don't mention those Asphalt Nitro games, they are terrible. Anyway, I'm happy that Sonic Racing works via Crossover. It's a nice looking game with online play, fully working. However, there is one catch. Character voice lines are missing and there's no way I could enable them. I hope this can be fixed in the future, but hey, that's the catch right there. The game runs smoothly at 60 FPS at high graphics settings. It's the only car racing game you can play on the Mac, which looks fantastic. The next game is Split Fiction. This is designed strictly for two-player co-op, where you get to control one character, each with unique abilities like double jumps, dashes, and level-specific gadgets. Levels blend sci-fi neon cities with fantastic realms, introducing fresh mechanics per chapter. Think synchronized puzzles, both fights and physical-based challenges that demand tight coordination. With the help of Crossover, you can run this game on the Mac. Despite having small render glitches, Split Fiction runs great on an M3 chip with online features fully working. Performance-wise, I capped the FPS at 30, running at medium settings. Up next, we have South of Midnight. This is an indie game which is a third-person action game where you play a young woman in a gothic fantasy version of the American Deep South, using magical powers to mend broken spirits, fight folklore creatures, and uncover trauma-fueled mysteries after a hurricane ravages her hometown. The 12-hour story focuses on family, folklore, and healing without filler, blending stop-motion style cutscenes with evocative southern music. Performance on the Mac caps at 30 FPS, and you need a more powerful Mac to run this game if you need more FPS. I enjoyed playing this game, and I hope we get more games like this in the future.
That'll make things a lot easier from now on.
Kingdom Come Deliverance Remastered is another RPG game set in the 1400s during the Civil War, where you continue as Harry, seeking revenge amidst realistic medieval life. It expands the original's ambitious open world to double the size, with deeper skill trees, dynamic NPC interactions, and authentic combat. This is a stunning game to play on a Mac despite running via crossover. I was getting 40 FPS at 1080p low graphics with DLSS set to quality. I would recommend a more powerful Mac like an M1 Pro or higher for better results if you're planning on running this game on your Mac.
Take that!
What a magnificent strike!
You fight like an old hag!
Next up, we have Dispatch. It is a 2025 episodic superhero workplace comedy adventure game, which is highly rated on Steam and by the gaming community, which got praise for its style. It uses pre-render cutscenes throughout the game to immerse you into its universe. It's definitely going to be a huge franchise moving forward. There are a total of 8 episodes to play through, and it just feels like a TV show. This game can run on any Apple Silicon Mac. I was getting 60 FPS on an M3 Max MacBook Pro, which is pretty decent in my opinion. Cyberpunk 2077. This is a AAA RPG game that got a Mac port last year, and it's unreal that it runs on a Mac. On my M3 MacBook Pro, performance is solid. I was getting 30 FPS with Metal Effects upscaling and frame gen turned on. This is one of those games that I was excited for when it got announced, and I'm happy we get to play it on a Mac. And lastly, we have Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remastered. It's an open-world RPG game from Bethesda Studios. You play as a prisoner tasked with delivering Amulet of King Jafar from Oblivion Gates. This is a pretty demanding game, and on my M3 Max MacBook Pro, I was getting 50 FPS at 1080p low graphics. And that's it for this video, guys. Let me know in the comments what you think of these titles that I picked. There are definitely more games you can play on the Mac that I left out. I'll try and add some in the description down below. So subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so that you don't miss the next video where I talk about indie Mac games you can play on a Mac. Last year was definitely a great year for Mac gaming, and I can't wait for this year's WWDC to see which games will be getting a Mac port. My name is Solomon. Thanks for tuning in.